Hi everybody, my name is Drew, and I really have it on my heart to make a video talking about all things sciatica, herniated slash bulging discs, um, my experience, and basically every single research and tip that I found on the internet through therapy, through friends, through just Reddit and other random places, YouTube as well. I've pretty much scoured almost every single YouTube video out there, just typing in either sciatica or bulging or herniated discs. And a lot of those resources are actually really fantastic, and I put them in the description below. I have a playlist that will have all the different yoga classes that I used on YouTube, different physical therapists that are on YouTube. Shout out to Bob and Brad. Some other just personal people that have great stories, and that thing is growing too. So if any of you guys have anything to add, I'd definitely love to hear that. But I just really wanted to make a video that is all encompassing, very holistic. So I'm gonna have some yoga, some exercises, physical therapy, exercises and stretches, talk about routine, posture, lifestyle. I actually have to correct myself now with the posture thing. Literally like a constant day in, day out kind of thing. And diet, working, just habits, routines, and also share my experience, what's worked, what hasn't, and just little odds and ends. It's been about a year of me dealing with this injury. I have two bulge discs, and I hope I don't anymore. I feel like I'm healing. And even as recently as April, I thought about getting surgery and I felt hopeless. And ever since I've been diagnosed and started dealing with it, I feel like personally I have such a strong fortitude and mental power and kind of resistance and endurance and perseverance. All these big words. I'm not that great, but I really empathize with anybody going through this, and it really is on my heart to kind of evangelize back health and posture and things for honestly anybody, because about a year ago and before, my whole life I had awful posture. I was sitting all day playing video games, slouching, eating shitty food, doing pretty much everything you shouldn't do. Back issues are the second most common issue next to the common cold. And this isn't just if somebody's suffering. So please just use this knowledge or take something at least from what I've learned. If you have any kind of back problem, if you've had any kind of back problem, or again, this really is speaking to just general holistic health. So most people could probably benefit from a lot of these tips. And I wish I had heard a lot of them sooner, because health prevention isn't necessarily talked about as much as once you're actually sick. And I'm even victim to this. I didn't even know what sciatica meant, what a sciatic nerve was. The fact that the central nervous system, which of course I knew about, but I wasn't thinking about it day in and day out, where some injury from your lumbar, your lower back, could impact your foot and, almost create how everything is interconnected. And that goes with everything else we're talking about too, as far as diet and stuff, how that really plays a role. With that being said, this is going to be a really, really long video. I'm going to try and make it as short and concise and efficient as possible. But I'm going to, on YouTube, put little timestamps. So if you check the description, or if you look on the little bottom where the video scrolls, it should have little section headers for diet, yoga, physical therapy exercises, my story, the science. And I'm going to kind of break it up like that. So with that long-winded explanation out of the way, let's go for it. All right, so this is going to be part one, talking about the science behind it and kind of understanding what's actually going on when people say herniated disc, bulging disc, sciatic pain, sciatica. This is something that is really important to my story, and there's a little bit of crossover there, but when I was first diagnosed, the doctor just brushed off sciatica and said, oh, that isn't a scientific, that's not a doctor medical word. And I kind of that, when I had researched my initial symptoms, that popped up right away. And I wish I'd kind of looked into that more. So just, I'm not a doctor, and a lot of what I say is just from stuff I found from Mayo Clinic. I forget other sources, but I researched this heavily and found a lot of good YouTube content and blogs and websites and medical journals kind of talking about it. Also, the book Back Mechanics is super helpful, and I'm going to link to that as well in the description. And that book is perfect for any kind of back issue. Talks about disc kind of issues a lot. So with herniated or bulging discs, there's basically, or slip disc, there's basically like a few levels of the disc kind of bulging or herniating out. And what happens is the discs are shock absorbers, and there's what, 4 in the lumbar, 2 in the sacrum, and I forget how many in the thoracic, because that's, and then in the neck too. Also pinched nerve, that's another kind of easily used term. So a lot of these are kind of talking about the same issue. Basically, when there's trauma or acute injury, any kind of, like, if you're falling and you catch yourself, when you brace, your whole core and everything is flexing, and those discs take a lot of the energy and a lot of the impact. Or a lot of them can also be just from long-term use. Everybody kind of has degenerating discs and discs that are less healthy. So every time you basically have a slouchy posture or are leaning and bending over to pick something up, and it's not using your hips or your glutes and is using your spine, you're basically putting pressure on those discs because there's so much that it's carrying and so much that it's in control of. So those are the two main ways you can suffer from sciatic pain and cause a disc to come out of alignment. And basically whenever it bulges out or when it herniates, so it totally, the inside of the disc, the little jelly, comes all the way out. Basically the bulge is more often than not from the inflammation. So that little jelly, I forget what it's called, on the inside of the disc that can come out because the disc is injured, basically is super inflammatory to the rest of the system around that area. And because of the inflammation that builds up while your body's trying to fight it and get it back in or take care of it, you're gonna have all that stuff pushing against your sciatic nerve, which then runs down your leg, and whether it's pushing left or right will determine what kind of leg pain you have. And the symptoms can vary from honestly nothing to just, back pain or soreness to, the symptoms going all the way from your glute, your butt region, your hips, into your leg, usually back side of your leg, ankle, foot. It can be tingling, numbness, sharp shooting pain, achiness, and eventually there can be enough nerve damage because it's kind of chronic that you can lose use of your leg or lose feeling in it. So it's something that you really have to prevent and always be aware of. The good part is if you have good posture, I always like to imagine it kind of like a cast, or I forget where I heard this, I think it was on a Reddit thread. But if you ever have some kind of injury, like I broke my arm, so when I broke my arm, I had a cast, and I pretty much held it in the cast almost 24/7, and I wasn't moving it. That gave a chance for my body to heal it without putting worse stress and pressure on it. But since it's a spine, most people don't wear a back brace unless it's like a serious, bone issue. Or imagine like a scab. When you bleed, you scab up, but if you pick it, you're just going to keep bleeding. So you have to give it time to heal. It's the same thing with the back. If you're just like constantly in bad posture, it's only going to get worse. You're not fixing the root. But if you're standing straight or if you're lying down, basically you want to get a neutral spine. It will eventually heal and take time. But every single inch of the nerve takes a month to heal. So it's honestly one of the longest things. And especially me being 6'4" on the taller side, it's a lot more prone just kneeling down or looking down, or cars not fitting me, seats not being made for me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty much the world not being built for me makes it kind of difficult to keep up that. You have to constantly remind yourself to have a good posture. And I don't know the certain numbers on this, but I think I've remembered them, so don't quote me on this. But I believe, though, that about 60% of discs, when they're either the inside of the disc is either bulged or all the way herniated, which means it's separated from the disc, 60% of them will reabsorb, which means that jelly will go back in. And then I believe the other close to 40%, or maybe less than that, like 30, 35, will will be asymptomatic. So even though the jelly will not be reabsorbed all the way, you still won't have pain or soreness or tightness or symptoms, major symptoms. which is honestly amazing news because that means that you can pretty much return to normalcy no matter what, given you, again, put the effort in, put the time in, and give it time. Because, again, it's been a year for me and I'm still not 100%. And there's a lot of great videos for the science, so I would definitely look up sciatica or bulging disc or herniated disc, and if you want to learn more from actual medical experts, but I just wanted to kind of bookend and forward this with some of that. Okay, so next part, I want to talk about my story, my experience. I'm going to go from summer of 2019 into pretty much current day, and a lot of this is going to have some crossover with what I cover later on, but I want to just go over, again, holistically, so like especially the mental, psychological, social, spiritual, physical, like everything. I want to go over that side of things and not so much the practical. It's been over a year. It was on my birthday of last year. I was traveling abroad, vacation, and we were on a beach, and basically it was a surprise, which was awesome. And again, I don't regret anything that happened, and if anything, this whole injury has given me a lot of lessons that I'm glad I learned. It kind of forced me and beat me into learning good posture and learning health and learning so much about my body. And it's almost like I'm happy to have those preventative things that I can do and be aware, since I am so tall and have to live with that, and it is so common anyway. And something else I didn't mention in the science part is most people do have a level of bulge or hernia or messed up discs, they just don't have any symptoms from it. And I think the percentage goes up with age. It's kind of exponential, where if you're 60 and plus especially, it's almost more than 50% of people have one. And again, everything you do can kind of help to have healthy spine hygiene, back hygiene. Anyway, so the surprise was to teach me how to surf, and it was a bit of a crowded beach, and I learned how. It was fine. So when I got on, you're taught to kind of put your weight into it and balance. I was thinking of the Wii Fit with the Wii balance board and having like the good center of focus, center of gravity. But once I was actually out there on the wave, it's kind of a different story once you're riding it. There's people around you. You have so many things on your mind. I was stressed. I was anxious. When I was standing up from getting on my knees, because you're on your knees, and once you're going, you start to stand up. I was definitely stressed, and I knew that it wasn't good posture, and everything was kind of, the shock absorb all hit for sure the lower spine. And honestly, nothing happened that day that was acute or painful. I didn't wipe out or hit anything. I didn't have any great like waves, or like I didn't hang down or anything. I remember one part I was helping my girlfriend somebody who almost hit her, and I don't know, it's hard there's no one moment that I knew, oh yeah, that happened, but I knew the next day I was extremely, extremely sore, and I didn't stretch either, which is one of my biggest regrets. Also with this trip, we were driving a lot. It was like a 12-hour plane ride. The beds were not the best. Everything was even less designed for me and my height. And I knew once I'd woken up the next day, I felt just like sore, like really sore, like if I'm going to the gym after not going for a few months. I knew my back was sore. So, I didn't really do much. I just took it easy, and repeatedly sitting in a car with bad posture, sitting on an airplane for 12 hours with bad posture, moving through different terminals, not being able to walk or exercise. That all took a toll on me, I think, and I think that was part of the reason that it led to the bulge disc. I think surfing was probably fine, and if I had recovered correctly, it would have been great. But I just think the added stress of all that didn't work out too well in my favor. The other thing is I went on a road trip when I got back into the States. I had a wedding I went to and was a part of the wedding. It was a lot of driving. And I honestly, at that point, I was having some pain in my hip and my glute, and I didn't know what was going on. So I went to a doctor. It wasn't my doctor, but because I was transitioning out of college, I had just graduated. And she thought it was tendonitis in my hip. And that's kind of the story I bought for the rest of that summer, from like July into August. And I saw a sports doctor once things weren't working, because I was just going, she told me to rest and maybe ice it. And that was that. The reason I knew it was something serious, even back on vacation and once I had gotten home, when I was sitting down, like on my like sitting down on my butt, I couldn't get my legs straight out like a 90 degree angle just sitting down, and I definitely couldn't lean forward or stretch at all. And that was the weirdest thing. I almost felt scared and like paralyzed for the future of my flexibility in my body. Um, anyway, I saw a sports doctor later that summer, and he basically told me it was pain due to a back problem. So the hip stuff was just a back problem. And that didn't really help me much, so he sent me to therapy, and I was going to move to a new city, hour and a half away from my first job out of college at the end of August, so this was like mid-August. I'd also gone on vacation with my family to the beach, and we just rented a beach house, and by this point, I was waking up at like 5 to 6 a.m. every morning with extreme pain, just like, especially it started to throb in my leg, and again, I was just taking it easy. I was icing it all the time, and I wasn't able to walk. So this beach trip was so rough because I wanted to walk on the beach, and even just walking on the beach was impossible, honestly. Basically, just the inflammation was so intense that anytime I moved it, it would kind of trigger that, and it was so traumatic that it felt like it was getting worse whenever I was doing any kind of walking. Especially getting in and out of the car was like the hardest thing for me. So I go to physical therapy, and they also identified as tendonitis. And I don't want to blame any one person because like it's not their job to totally be perfect with every single diagnosis. And I also had some bias in, going in. Like I said, that original sports doctor I mentioned, could it be sciatica? And he just like, oh, that's not a word, or like that's not a technical term. It's not helpful. It's pain due to a back problem. And my therapist just gave me some kind of weird stretches, and I felt like some of the massaging and tension relieving that first physical therapy was great, but then I was just back at square one right after that. And about a week after that, I had to move, so I only had 2 sessions there. And then once I had moved, I'll take care of this myself. I'll be fine. Time will heal it because I've been through a lot. I've broken an arm. I've recovered from greater things before. So when I got here in this new apartment, again, for new city, so didn't really have any friends here. Hour and a half from all my old friends, family, girlfriends, so it wasn't like I was that scared, but couldn't even move in any of my boxes. My parents and girlfriend had to kind of help me do all the lifting. I didn't do any heavy lifting. I was just excited to be moving and to start, work, get out of college, and be a young adult. But literally it was so bad that I would see people walking their dog, and I just almost cried, just wanting a normal life to just be able to walk outside without having any kind of pain or like discomfort. I told my mom I would give it a few weeks before I got a second opinion up here, and I did that shortly after, and I saw another sports medicine doctor. This time though, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was a sports critical injury doctor pretty much, and he knew it was, bulge disc, herniated disc right away. He just checked a few little symptoms. He was in and out, and he was so helpful and efficient, and it was just so helpful. This was come September. So had to get an MRI, which I'll show on the screen, I think, edit this in. And you can obviously see so it's L5 lumbar, the 5th disc in the lumbar, and S1, the first in the sacrum, are bulged out to the left, and I had the crazy leg pain. And starting my new job, I went to a happy hour, and the whole time I was just thinking of leaving. Like I had to stand the whole time, and at this point, standing and walking were incredibly hard, and I mean, it was kind of destroying me because like I just wanted to be a normal young adult and just like be able to go to a happy hour, or even there was a tour of the new office I was in, and I was like barely able to walk and be there for like the hour-long tour. Even some seats, we had a training day and I had to sit down, and it was just like so excruciating. And it was weird because at the time sitting was probably the only thing that relieved me, and standing and walking were just awful and would just aggravate it. So the other thing, after the MRI came in, I was diagnosed. I got a return checkup and follow-up, and basically physical therapy was the biggest thing they recommended then. So I started physical therapy, and it was awesome. My physical therapist was just perfect. really nice and holistic, and gave me a lot of other resources for just like, pain psychology. We were even open about talking about, like, is a chiropractor a good idea, which I don't think it is, and I haven't seen one. I'm sure there's a lot of great chiropractors, but in general, like, I've heard a lot of horror stories. We talked about acupuncture, talked about all sorts of different treatments and food stuff and lifestyle stuff, TENS unit or a heating pad and all sorts of things. And I also just loved this place. Like, the community was great, and I think too with any kind of chronic pain, it more often than not is mental. Like, I mean, the neurons are firing. It's so weird to think about it, to really boil it down, but you have the back is setting off this chain reaction to your spine that's sending signals, and it's like hurting in your leg. But the biggest problem early on was like, oh, I need to ice my leg. But like, it would do nothing. The leg had no ailment. And the other crazy thing by this point was walking was so weird. I had the weirdest gait, the weirdest like walking, posture, because pretty much my hip, my glute, my hip flexors, my upper legs were totally just shot. Like, any kind of, it was just so tight and so stiff. And I'll show you what I mean later on with how far I could get my leg off the ground just laying down. It was minuscule, like the smallest angle. It was just like, whenever you would raise it, it would just inflare the disc and the nerve. But all that really is just in your head. So whether it was medicine or stretching, relaxing, massage, heating, icing, any kind of stuff like that can really take away the pain, which can then help you get to the root, which is, building up your core muscles, building up strength again, walking, getting that blood flowing to then heal it. The biggest thing at this point was researching, because now that I knew what it was, I was able to, the Sciatica subreddit has been super helpful. I've made a few posts there and found so many great resources and people to learn from, even people contacting me directly to talk to me that are closer to my exact issue. I found so many great things on there. But the biggest thing was figuring out that walking is good and standing is good. So with work, I transitioned to actually standing up during meetings and taking a ton of little walking breaks, just like, 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 8 minutes, just like whenever I could, just to get up and stretch and to walk around a little bit. And physical therapy twice a week was absolutely incredible. So I did that pretty much through end of September, start of October, through pretty much into January. And I think that's probably a good time, like 3 months, maybe a little more, a little less. Basically, you just want to have a place that forces you to make sure you're doing it, and somebody to have a second pair of eyes on you to make sure you have good posture and are doing things correctly and not making things worse. And also just a place to really learn what you should do and different resources. And I'll show all those off later on, and I don't want to have that be an end-all be-all of like, you need to do all these things every day. But really, like, with each one, if I could do it over, I would just try like one a day and see if I feel better or worse after it, and maybe even the day after. And then the second day, introduce another thing, and then, keep going until I have a good workout regimen and a good pacing with everything. And making sure you really take your time and make sure everything is right for you, because even if it's worked for me, everybody is different. And another big thing I've learned from this is to listen to my body, whether it needs to rest, whether it needs to walk, whether it needs to be in a better posture, even now doing this, whether I need to stretch, whether I need to drink or eat or whatever. If I need to leave, if I need to say no to this road trip or to this getting in the car, say no to this dessert, whatever, like just knowing how everything will impact your body. I'll just go into the mental aspect. It's awful. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself having depression, but I mean, depression doesn't have to be a genetic kind of lifelong thing. But I was definitely depressed, had my kind of, I saw some like OCD pop in, definitely some anxiety, definitely social anxiety, like just having the constant pain chronically in your head really can aggravate and make any kind of other underlying thing much worse. And it can also just put you in a really hopeless, negative mind space. Honestly, at this point in the last fall, since I had moved, I had a lot of people visiting. My girlfriend was able to come up a lot of weekends, and I was able to see other friends too. I was able to even visit my sisters because they had just started college a few times, and I had a few fun little events that weren't too far away. But just to have that kind of support, honestly, like having those people that love me, that when I felt like I had like a happy hour or a some kind of like small group or some kind of new group of friends that I didn't know, and this is partly my fault, but I feel like those kind of people don't know you, and I wasn't comfortable saying, oh, I have this back issue. Can we not like go up this hill? Can we not play this sport? Can we not sit right now? Can I stand? Like, but with my family, if we went to a park or a trail, we sat for like 5 minutes when I needed a break. Or we didn't go to that trail. We didn't go to the restaurant where sitting down would have been awful for me. We stayed in. We did this. And I feel almost selfish being able to like make those calls, but it was so helpful for me to have those people that love me just for who I am, that they don't care. They would make any kind of sacrifice for me. And beyond that, just having them love me and just have that kind of, oxytocin from just being around people that make me feel comfortable and kind of escape me from my pain and make me remember, who I am. Those were honestly the biggest helps at that point, even though, I was on anti-inflammatory medicine, naproxen, I was taking some muscle relaxers, which those were honestly at this point necessary. So yeah, definitely just love is like the biggest healing catalyst. Around this time too, I was definitely looking into surgery, and I'm 23 now, I was 22 at the time. It was kind of the most sad thing to think about, such a young adult having that kind of life-altering thing that could create so many other back issues down the road. So at this point, going into winter, I had a lot of progress. I mean, I was able to stand up for more than, 5 or 10 minutes. I was able to walk more than 5 minutes. I was getting up to walking 3 miles a day at this point, and when I had a few friends visit, we'd go to the mall or go to a trail. I could walk, my record was like 6 miles come like January and December. I was worried about being able to go to concerts because I had a few that I had tickets for prior to the injury. I went to the concerts. I was able to stand up. I took sitting breaks, but I was able to do it. And that was mostly thanks to therapy and just recovery. And come January, the biggest thing I realized was that the mind needs to be in a place of focusing on progress and gratitude and healing, and not focusing on pain and worrying about, what will happen in a year or whatever. It's so easy to get caught up in the pain, but again, it is all in the mind, so really focusing on, getting better and going forward and all that was huge. Around this time too, I'd quit therapy around January. I had gone in for another checkup with my sports doctor, and I had scheduled a epidural. So this was just pumping in steroids, anti-inflammatories and stuff into my lower back, and with a really painful needle. Honestly, didn't help that much, and I don't know if I'd recommend that just because it was so expensive. But also, if you do have the opportunity and the money, maybe if your insurance will cover it better, I think it's definitely worth a shot. Wow, unintentional pun. Some people do too, and they say that works better, but I've also heard from a few people that it hasn't worked that well. But around this time, I was really mixing up and kind of changing almost everything about my life to slowly, kind of like machine learning, lots of bad reference, probably, but just to slowly tweak things, like add something here, take away something, kind of like what I was saying with the exercises. So sleeping especially, one night I would sleep with a pillow under my leg. One night I would sleep with a pillow under my leg and a little blanket under my feet to get everything up a little higher. One night I would sleep on the floor with a yoga mat. One night I would sleep on my couch, which was a little firmer. One night I would sleep with this pillow or this pillow. I would go on the couch with this pillow. I have like a sofa bed, so it's nice. A harder pillow with this bed, I would just change. It almost took me a month with the sleeping thing to get it perfect. And it's also hard to know, this was the hardest thing, was like, am I just sore? Or was it a bad way to sleep the way I slept last night? And I'll show you how I sleep eventually, because I think that's really crucial. And the other thing around this time was I was getting really discouraged because I wasn't seeing as much progress. But with therapy, what I was basically doing, and what I kept doing at home, was stretching and building up core muscles all through here to then support the back and the disc and your whole body so that you have better posture and that it can actually heal once your muscles are built up enough. And building muscles takes so much time because at first all I could do was like a few little sets and then I'd wear out, or a few little things. But once I could start to walk, miles and miles, I would go on the treadmill before COVID in my apartment and, walk a lot. Again, taking walking breaks was huge. All that stuff was so helpful. But it took honestly a few months to build up the muscles enough where it would start to heal. And also, the nerve takes so much time to heal, and so many other things take a ton of time too. So come COVID, everything kind of changed, and I was at home for a month with my family, which was really good. Felt like kind of my symptoms were a little worse around this time. I don't know if it was stress or just like the different environment or my lifestyle. But I was so grateful to be able to work from home. I'm just a computer programmer, software guy, so I most of the time I was focusing on not hunching down. I created a makeshift little standing desk when I was here, and same thing at home. I would lay down a lot to work, like prone on my stomach, take little breaks, walking breaks, or just laying down on my back breaks, some stretch breaks. So if you can, just try and do that as much as you can, and also try to walk, even if it's just down the hall and back. And then a week later, it's 2 times down the hall. And then a month later, you're doing a full mile. That might be extreme, that might be little, suit it to everybody's point. But the point is that you're progressing and you're always being active, because resting can help in times, but honestly, you just need to keep attacking it and not doing bad posture, but at least keep moving, keep walking, to then that movement, if you're quick walking, supposedly will help the blood flow and to help everything heal down there and also make you stronger in a lot of different ways. But around this time, I was getting another little battle with like doubts and worry and thinking about surgery. Literally during this week, 2 people reached out to me. One person I had just met, and then one person who used to be like a mentor in my life, and found out he had the same exact issue, and he wrote up like pages and pages, this like almost like perfectly made essay email, just with everything he's gone through, and it almost lined up exactly 1-to-1 with my story, which was hilarious. And I got on the phone and talked with him for an hour, and it was such a good time catching up. But hearing from him and then this other random person who really encouraged me, and they were both a lot older than I was, and they'd gone through it, with kids and more stress and a busier life and, like all these different things. I was like, of course I can do it. Like, who am I? Like, why would I give up? Not that surgery is giving up, because I think it is needed for certain cases. But for me, and I think a lot of young, healthy people, it really does just take time, and it's that mental aspect too that can help so much. And this was around April, and I was almost regressing. So like the hardest thing was taking, 2 steps forward, but then like 1 step backwards. Like it was just so difficult to know, did I just walk too much? Did I overwork myself? Am I sore? Or am I doing something where my symptoms are getting worse? Or do I need surgery where they're going in and taking out the part that's inflamed because it's just, the root is too deep to even get any kind of leeway? And I'd call it my physical therapist reached out this time, and that was so great too. Literally it was this week of just encouragement and hope that I needed, because I was almost just ready to give up. And again, like the love of my family and friends and support from all my loved ones was just like exactly what I needed as well. But I decided not to, and I'm just going to keep at it. I said I'd give myself till June, and in May and June I had the biggest increase. Like I kept saying it was so linear with getting better, which made it really difficult since it was like 9 months at this point. But it was definitely getting a little more exponential. It was finally that progress that I needed, and I do believe it was due to the core muscles getting stronger. And since then, I pretty much have only had pain, I'd say like every other day I'll have like pain for like 5% of the day. And this was so different. It used to be like 50%. I would say I was like barely pain-free. Like I always had a little bit of pain. But again, at the start of the new year, I got off my medicine. I totally did just, healthy diet and just tried to work on things without any kind of help. And, I was thinking about getting another epidural, another steroid injection, but I ended up doing fine. And since then, I've tried a few other things. I've tried acupuncture, which it was kind of relief in the short term, but it didn't really help right after that. It was right back to square one. Yeah, I'm really happy with where I'm at now, and I'll show you later just how much progress I've had, but the amount of improvement I've had, the only thing that's happening now is just stiffness and tightness in my like legs, in my hip flexors, in my glute, in my back. The craziest thing was with the pain, it was never in my back. The pain was always in my leg and foot. And the tingling and the numbness and some of the like weird nerve stuff really got to me mentally with like, am I ever going to recover from this? Is this going to be permanent? And I can say I've almost had none of that since, unless I'm, in a car for a long time, or have bad posture, or just don't stretch for a few days, or forget to walk, or if it's like a rainy day. But even when it was raining, when I was walking a lot, I would just walk up and down the halls of my apartment when I was working from home, or in the office before that, walking up and down the halls. Like, even if it's raining, I just kept going day in, day out. Like, every day it's a battle, and I think that was the biggest thing, is just the perseverance and endurance is the biggest thing that can help you. And it's hard to honestly see the end, because it is something I'm going to have to deal with for my whole life. And again, a lot of people are dealing with and are asymptomatic. But I'm at a place where I'm just going to keep on slowly introducing more exercises and more things, and not go too, like, I'm not going to start running soon. I'm not going to start doing crazy bending and yoga. I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing until my body tells me, yeah, you can like do this, or you can like climb, you can do a hike now, or you can drive a little longer. And I've had to say no to a lot of things, a lot of like road trips, especially a lot of like being in the car. I'm thankful to not have a long commute and to be able to work from home, like I said. Yeah, I know that was really long-winded, but yeah. One thing I wanted to touch on, which I kind of talked about earlier, is inflammation. Something that was prescribed right away were oral steroids, which are really good and healthy, and it's probably worth a shot to do that. And similar to the epidural, I kind of think it's worth a shot just to see how your body reacts to that kind of thing. The second thing I got prescribed was naproxen or Aleve, which is another version of it. Really cheap and really worth it. It's basically an anti-inflammatory. It can be kind of bad on your stomach, so just make sure you eat, and obviously there's side effects with everything. But I honestly really liked that route. I kind of became reliant on it, where I would take one in the morning and one at night. And once it set in, like 30 minutes later, it was night and day with the pain. So if you're early on, it's really helpful to have that kind of pain relief so that you can actually walk and sit and stand and do your exercises and your stretching. But like I touched on earlier, it can give you a false sense of progress and healing, and it can almost, you can do the wrong posture and wrong exercises, and things can kind of slip under the cracks since you have that pain relief, whereas before you should probably listen to your body. So I'd say as much as you can bear, don't take any. But something I did do was eat a lot of, I started an anti-inflammatory diet, which is definitely a buzzword. I remember going to one restaurant and that was like their thing, was like everything on the menu is anti-inflammatory. And the science is a little bit out on that one. It's a little bit of a vague term, but essentially there's inflammation, like I said, from a disc and the jelly kind of coming out. And your body has inflammation all the time. I mean, if you have any kind of pain or injury, there's going to be inflammation, which is a signal for your body to send cells to that area and to heal it. And blood flow can kind of be directed, and that can start to heal. But if you have too much, it can really take away from anything else, and it's just that constant pain with no results. And it can kind of stop you in your tracks, like it did me, like where I was just resting or icing or sitting. So I still do this now, but I try and lessen it a little bit. But I would honestly recommend anybody to at least give it a month try to do an anti-inflammatory kind of diet. And it doesn't have to be like a full everything is anti-inflammatory and no inflammation, but essentially you don't want to add any inflammation to your body. If you think about it, like if you eat a lot of sugar, if you eat a lot of meat, those things can inflame your system. But really you just want that back to be inflamed so that it will be taken care of. So some little things I tried, I'll just show you around the house. All right, gonna start with some dark chocolate. Honestly, any of them do. The best brand is probably not Trader Joe's, but dark chocolate can be anti-inflammatory, and obviously a lot of it has added sugar. So there's some that have, I think it's Lily's, that has just stevia, so no sugar. But dark chocolate, anti-inflammatory, and definitely good for the muscles and joints. Anti-inflammation is good for not just your back, but also joints and muscles and any kind of other stiffness that's going on. All right, so next up, this is going to be a doozy, but this is kind of my smoothie setup. I have a smoothie most days, and I have a lot of little life hacks with smoothies that can help if you don't like to just take, like salmon, for instance, has a lot of good vitamins. Fish oil is really good, and it has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. That and I think tuna are the better fish for that. But if you still want to if you don't want to go that route, or if you can't eat a lot of fruits easily or vegetables, basically anything that's anti-inflammatory is just like more natural. Pretty much most vegetables, most fruits, those fishes I mentioned. And like I said, just sugar and meat are the main things that can be inflammatory. The other thing though is you want to make sure you're building up protein and you're building up your new muscles that you're hopefully building with the core. So turmeric, this is probably my my friends know that this is like just my favorite word, but I have a little shaker. Sometimes I cook with this or can put this in honestly my coffee or little lattes or smoothies. There's also a powdered version. You could get a cheaper one on Amazon. I always put this in my smoothies. I'm trying to kind of wean off of it, but in moderation, it can still be really helpful. Another thing is layered coffee creamer. Definitely a little bit pricey, but if you like coffee, it'll last a long time. It's powdered. You can just keep it out here. It has really healthy sweeteners from coconuts. It has aquamin, which is really healthy. This one is the cacao one. I would definitely recommend the turmeric one because, again, it's like an easy way to get turmeric in your system that tastes amazing. Also, obviously, protein for the smoothies. Hemp seeds are really great too. Vitamin D and vitamin C, I've heard a lot of people say, and honestly, you should just be taking that anyway if you're not getting enough. There's a lot of turmeric supplements, and if you don't want to, do the other methods I mentioned, easily just take one of these a day. Vitamin B is also good if you're not eating meat, if you're trying to lower that, which I personally have gone vegetarian this past year. I I don't hate meat or anything, but I think it's helped me, and I think every diet is, everybody should have a different diet, but it's definitely worked for me. I have some healthy sweeteners if you like anything a little sweeter that I mentioned, but there's monk fruit sweetener and stevia, which are both really beautiful, 0 calorie, like no inflammation sweeteners. 2 teas that I've found, there's this one I would highly recommend, and this was actually recommended by me by the acupuncturist I saw one time, but it's a ginger turmeric herbal tea. It has some orange zest and some lemon peel in it, and it tastes amazing. That's what I'm drinking right now. Super anti-inflammatory because of the ginger and the turmeric. Anything ginger would be good too for the diet stuff. And then Numi has a lot of great teas. This one is a little bit gross, a little bit, medicinal kind of tasting, but, not bad. The other quick thing with diet I want to mention is just weight loss. I definitely think a lot of people who fall into having some kind of disc problem tend to be a little sedentary, and I definitely was in this category. Before I had the injury, I didn't really work out regularly. I'd maybe go to the gym for like a month and then take 3 months off when school got busy or life got busy or when I went back to school or whatever. I also never really even retained a lot of the muscle I built up, and definitely am a foodie. I loved eating, I loved video games, just things that, I wouldn't like walk daily or take walking breaks, and, I'd be on the computer for a long time, either from, school or work or just gaming or other hobbies. So definitely weight loss can be helpful, whoever you are, honestly. I mean, not even just losing weight, but just like lowering your fat in areas you don't need it and gaining muscle, and especially your core, even your legs too, just to alleviate any kind of back pain that you're having. So if you can, I would definitely recommend intermittent fasting. Has been great for me, just eating 8 hours out of the day. So I eat between like 10 and 5, which is super easy to do. I've heard of all sorts of other weird methods, but I would just definitely experiment and see what works for you again. All right, so we're here. This is the couch. It's honestly really firm. It's just from IKEA, the Floatable. Definitely recommend it if you need a sleeper sofa. It's super firm, and I'll get to my mattress next, but I think, sleeping, lounging, relaxing is really key to make sure you have good posture. This is just a heating pad. I honestly waited way too long to get one of these, but it's honestly my most key thing, honestly, to recovering. I usually set it to 6 if I'm going hard. If I'm already hot, maybe like 3. If I'm gonna lay on it for like 2 hours, maybe like 2 or 3. And it's honestly amazing. If not just to heat up the body and say, hey, you need to come here, but also just to alleviate pain. I did ice for a few months, and I kind of regret doing ice just because it can kind of numb the area and it doesn't promote healing, even though it does kind of numb the pain and help with that. But you can see kind of from the crease marks, but typically I'll kind of roll it up, and then I'll give it like one more and then one more fold. So it's kind of like in this really rolled up thing. If you're not doing that, you could also roll up a t-shirt or a blanket to basically lift up. I usually put it around where my sacrum is, but you're basically trying to get your back into neutral spine, which I'll show you standing up in a second actually. But when you're laying down, so typically I would get down here, and bridge is a good stretch, so you can bridge up just carefully, slowly. Gonna do the double fold and put it somewhere on my sacrum / lumbar, and make sure I like to get my sacrum or my tailbone to usually touch the wherever I'm laying down, and I like a little tiny pillow under my neck. So neutral spine, and I'll show you standing up right after this, but typically your thoracic, your upper spine from most of your back is kind of totally straight. Shoulders, even back. You want your lumbar to be kind of popped up like I have now. So kind of like lumbar goes in a little bit and then straight. And then you want your neck to be kind of up, which is raised again by a pillow typically. And if I'm watching TV, sometimes I'll literally do this. I might angle it better so I don't have to like turn my neck. But if I'm watching a movie or playing a video game, sometimes I'll literally just do it like this. Or if I'm like watching YouTube, I'll just like hold it here or whatever. Okay, now I'll show you neutral spine from standing up. So basically, a good little practice, you can put your tailbone, your sacrum kind of against the wall, and then get your shoulders touching. And you can know when your hand can't really like slide back here. So you want to kind of get it, and then make sure your neck is up, your heels are kind of down. I remember when I first was working on this, my posture was so messed up from the different uses of my muscles and my walking and all that bad posture. I looked up like 10 videos, pretty much every video on YouTube, for how to get good back posture and standing posture, especially hard if you're tall and if it's not a habit. 2 things I do, like if I'm standing and watching TV, or if I'm like in line at the grocery store or wherever, if I'm standing, you can put your hands behind your butt, and that'll kind of force, if you see like you're here, your elbows are kind of in versus they come back when you stand up. You can also touch your elbows and do this. This is another really good one. You can also with your forearms, this can let you even push your lumbar in a little bit. And again, the key is to remember to keep that neck up. And again, it's kind of like that cast metaphor or the scab of just like keeping yourself in neutral spine so that it can heal and you're not making anything worse. You're kind of giving your body every opportunity to do what it can. Even if I'm like playing my video game standing, sometimes I'll just play behind my back and try and look up, and a mounted TV helps with that too, so you're not like, or if you're at your computer desk, try and like raise the monitor up so you don't have to like look up or look down. That was really key to me. I know I mentioned this earlier, but standing desk is really important. I just stacked up some board games. You want to kind of get it where you're basically, again, you have that good posture. This could even be a little bit higher just for the monitor, because I am kind of looking down. But the main thing is to get that like 90-90 with your elbows and your neck. And again, this isn't perfect, so typically if I had the keyboard separated, you'd want the keyboard like down here where your elbows come in, and you'd want the monitor a little higher. So when I'm in the office and in my other room for my just for fun computer, I kind of have it in a better setup. So we'll go there next. Okay, so this example, and this is how I have it set up when I was at work too. I'm gonna go back, I have to go in the office again soon. So you wanna make sure you have, a good chair. I picked out this one because it has a lumbar push here. In my car, I actually have a thing that wraps around the seat, and it is a lumbar cushion for the car. They have a lot of those you could buy. Also, some cars with the automatic, like electronic powered seat or whatever, they have a lumbar button you can push out, and I would definitely recommend to do that so that you're in neutral spine when you're there too. But with this, you want to make sure you can see these are straight, so you have the 90-degree angle between your legs and your back. So this little hip is 90. You also really want a 90 with your legs and your upper and lower legs. So you can see 90 here in my knee. It's going straight down. You also really want 90 with your keyboard and mouse. So you can see here it's almost perfect. I could probably have it just a little bit lower, but right here I'm pretty good. You want to make sure you're back when you're typing and you're not punching forward. And then again with that monitor, you want it to be straight on. And I pretty much have that going for me with this setup too. So that's all pretty vital. Another thing I'd highly recommend is a seat cushion. I got a purple cushion, which I adore. It's like $40, and I also bought the one they have for the car that wraps around here. But this honestly made a huge difference. I was bringing this into work. I would definitely recommend keeping it at work, and there's even portable ones where you can just bring it with you if you need it at home too. I wouldn't recommend sitting as much as you can to try and minimize sitting eventually, from what I've experienced, but definitely get some kind of good seat cushion or have a good comfy chair, because you want anything that can help you out. Beds are another huge aspect. You spend approximately 8 hours or so a night in them, and honestly they helped me a lot in healing. It's probably if you could walk more it would be better, but I did find that a lot of the healing did happen while I was asleep. This was actually my first big purchase, which I wouldn't necessarily say is a must. There's also toppers you could get that could make your mattress firmer. I think firmer mattresses are good for keeping your back in neutral spine essentially. But I bought just pull this back, a Helix mattress, and Helix is just a cheaper healthy back mattress. I just looked up like best mattresses for sciatica or best mattresses for back pain, and they showed up, and I did a lot of research, and they're a lot cheaper than any kind of Tempur-Pedic or like typical, but it's just a mattress in a box, so they shipped it to me, and I got the firmest model. I believe it's the Dawn, but whichever one is the firmest, and you can see it's definitely soft enough, but it also is like I'm putting in a lot of work to get it to bend, so it is pretty firm, but still pretty comfy. And again, that's kind of preference, but if you have a softer mattress, it's going to give, and your spine isn't necessarily going to stay in neutral. But when you're like sitting down, you're typically like going for the hips and the butt. You're not just like bending, but like a good squat, good squat form, and you're kind of sitting here. And then when you're coming up, get in the heels, kind of lift up. Sometimes I even go for get there. Another little thing, every time I'm like at a stoplight, I'll usually stretch my back, get that stretch. Sometimes I'll even push the lumbar and stretch back. So yeah, that's another really good stretch, kind of similar to that prone stretch I was talking about. Anyway, so when you're going to bed, typically I would sit, and then I would probably lower to the side. So get here, and then go straight to back. So the biggest thing I found that helps, and this can be different for everybody, and I don't love back sleeping, but I found it's the best for healing. So get any kind of like small-ish blanket, and what I would do is get it really tight, so I'd twist it a few times, and stick it similar to the heating pad. And I've even slept with the heating pad, but I'm a little bit of a sweaty sleeper, so it's not the best for me. But I would recommend to keep heat on it during the night, even if it's just a little bit. Even wearing a hoodie or heavy pants or bundling up. I've heard, I don't know if that's a myth, but I've heard it's really good to be hot when you're sleeping. Kind of a similar thing where you're getting the blood flowing. But anyway, that's good to keep your spine in neutral, because if not, it could sink, and you always want that lumbar to be up. It's also slightly even bulging, reverse bulging. It's pushing that disc back in, hopefully, too. The other thing I adore, and I don't know if I'll ever stop doing this, maybe someday, but putting a pillow, pretty decently firm pillow, under your knees, and it kind of can relieve any kind of weight on the back. So if your legs are just here, it's putting more weight and strain on your back, and especially your lower back. I would even put a blanket under my heels to lift it up a little bit, not like as much as the knee, but I found that helped. I just stopped doing that just to see if it made a difference, so I would definitely try that. And yeah, this has typically been really good for me. Sometimes it's harder to fall asleep, and I'll go to my side. I would never go on the side where you have the symptoms. So this is the leg that I have the symptoms on. So sometimes I'll also sleep on my side, and I'll keep this under. You know, it still pushes it in, and I usually rotate this pillow to get it between my legs, so that when I'm on my side, I'm still in neutral spine. And again, this is taking the load off of this leg that's in pain. So it's not twisting my legs or doing anything weird. It's keeping them in a good neutral area and keeping the weight off so that I can still, like this side is still fine. And if you're a side sleeper, I think that's probably a good method. I've heard a few people sleep on their stomach. I really wouldn't recommend it. I get pain quickest that way. Another little life hack I found is tying this up. That way, if you do, you know, in your sleep, in your dreams or whatever, you slip to one side, it'll still be there if you go back, or it'll still be pushing it in. So I found that's a really good thing to do too. I actually have to pee right now, so this is kind of good timing to talk about everything bathroom related going on. Toilet stuff is pretty simple. Same kind of sitting posture I talked about, making sure it's more of like a squat motion, trying to keep your back as straight as you can. The biggest tip I would just say is to try and get a quick poop in and not to stay too long to risk that, you know, posture or pain. Again, another thing, just standing up, sometimes I brace and then, you know, get your hips in there. Another thing that's been super duper helpful is baths with Epsom salts. Honestly, really cheap. You can get these pretty much anywhere. And as you can see there, they have a soaking aid for minor sprains and bruises. Ignore the first one, that's not super helpful for what we're talking about. But honestly, this was like the biggest pain relief that would last, you know, about an hour or two longer than anything else. So I definitely recommend doing that. I did it about like weekly, and every once in a while I'll still do one. And it's also, make sure you have a big enough tub where hopefully you can lay on your back as good as you can. I won't demonstrate just because the water's not high enough, but if you have water, you can kind of float, and it'll make it easier for the posture to get in and out with that water in there. And I would say for about 20-30 minutes. The one I do is just the bend on the knee, just a little squat. Squat down, pick up, squat up, but never bend. That's just gonna add to the tension. So, you know, you pick up, squirt some shampoo, pick up, soap, pick up, go down. This was the hardest muscle memory to kind of get into my system, but it really helps. I'm gonna pee, so I'll be right back. Alright, well now that I've peed, I can wash my hands, and I'll even brush my teeth. I'll show you everything. So, again, always good spine. So if you bend down and support, if you're bending in your hips, which takes a lot of time to learn how to do once you're so tight and ruined from this, it's actually also a good yoga stretch to stretch your legs, which are, honestly, I need to stretch my legs. That's like the one thing I'm missing out on so much. You can do the supportive thing, where you're supporting here and kind of bending down, but you can still keep the lumbar, you can still keep your thoracic straight, you can still try and keep that neutral spine as long as you're bending in your hips. So you can imagine your body's bending, so your body's technically, you're folding, but your spine is still staying straight. You're not, you know, bending down here. I don't even want to do it. I'm so adverse to it, even though I probably could a little more in my life. So anyway, go in here. Another thing you can do is just squat. Sometimes I get a real wide squat if you're really trying to be cautious, or just here, kind of bend your butt down, or again, kind of that supported motion with the hips I mentioned. All right, so we'll talk about picking stuff up. So say we drop something or we're picking something up. What I would definitely do is just sometimes honestly this is a common pickup I do, is I bend down on one knee and then reach down and pick it up. And that is pretty minimal effort on the spine. Another thing, which is awkward, like even when I go to my mailbox, I go on one knee, and it's a public floor, so sometimes I feel weird about that. For instance, in a grocery store, if I'm like looking at items and trying to go down low to get some beans, I'll usually bend down, which honestly I used to feel weird about it. Now I'm just like, I'm used to doing it, it's just a habit. Another thing you can do again is to bend your knees and then reach and get it. And then, there's the golfers pick up this one and this one. And that's got a little off balance, but that one is pretty helpful. One more thing I really wanted to mention is some like little things that you might not think about that are actually super hard. Putting on pants is pretty self-explanatory, and shirts and all that. But socks are literally the hardest thing to put on. And I used to actually love when I was at home or when my girlfriend was visiting. Because some of these things, like tying your shoes and putting on socks, are probably the hardest things to do. And my physical therapist actually gave me a life hack that I've used ever since with socks. Because, before I was having to lift my leg up to get it on, which those things are some of the honestly hardest things to do with sciatic pain. You almost can't even lift your knee up that high. So, what I do now is lifting it up, bringing it up about here, bending a little bit, and then just sliding it on, just like that. And also it's good to get some socks that are easier to put on. Some are really tight or really long and whatever. Putting on shoes, I always do the lunge kind of thing and bend just a little bit, but trying to bend it all. Just get them in there. Tying them is really hard. Honestly, I have no answer to tying your shoes. But again, I keep mine tied, and if I tighten them, I usually wait till I have a loved one nearby. The other hard thing, surprisingly, is cutting my toenails, which I didn't do for a long time. But the best, I guess, posture I've come up with is to basically sit like this, and you're clipping them here, or even coming here. But that's the only way I found to do it. Again, if you have a spouse or a partner or a mom or whatever, somebody who's really loving, I think that's a good way to go too, or just be a crazy toe monster. I also wanted to show a few more leg stretches I do before I walk. Some I don't know if they're perfect, so I don't do them all the time, but this one, where you're kind of pulling it in, I don't love that one actually, that's my least favorite. This one also, where you're just kind of, it's a good one. Sometimes I'll just do these when I'm waiting at a stoplight or just on the street if I forget. This one is huge, so you can stretch your calf either, if you have something you can push it against, that doesn't really work. In physical therapy they have a ramp, or if you have sometimes a chair leg. Or you can kind of bend and make sure that leg is straight and you're stretching the calf there actually. That's great. I do this every time. And also you can always come down, back stretch there and a lunge stretch. Love that one. Same thing on that side. And then you also got, you want to stretch your legs, and the yoga videos have a few on there. Another thing I like to do sometimes is put my leg up, here works, or on a chair, on a couch, on a bed. I don't know how great, I think this is okay for posture, but just to stretch out this underleg, which is the tightest part for me, I know. All right, one more thing I'd recommend is getting a good pair of shoes. Something you can do to elevate any pair of shoes is insoles. They're a little bit pricey. You can get them, but you can just buy some that are pre-made, but these are actually molded to my exact arch. And I have a high arch, as you can see. So you can literally just slide these into any pair of shoes you own. I went to a foot walking specialty store. It's called Roadrunner. They have a bunch of them. I actually got a therapy discount, which is awesome. But they matched me with this pair of shoes, which I found online for half the price they were selling them there. But they have this tire material on the bottom. They have this boost material, and they're great. I mean, any kind of running shoe is typically great for walking as well, so you can't really easily go wrong. I also got these a while ago, but these are Brooks, and these are probably a good brand they have a nice little cushion material. But yeah, they're another kind of therapeutic foot brand. There's also Hoka, and forget, there's a few others for sure. Also for flip-flops, there's Chaco, which are very orthopedic as well. They have sandals and shoes and boots and all sorts of things. Another brand I love is Allbirds. These are just a nice little shoe. They have a running style now, which I want to check out, but I think they're probably better for what I'm talking about. Yeah, I definitely swear by getting a good pair of shoes. Investing in that and a mattress, I think, are important, and diet. This is actually my phone, and I just wanted to show you how much I've been walking, just so you can get an idea. I got hurt in June, so it was on this day. So in July, you can see, didn't do a whole lot of walking. This was mainly when I got injured. So I came back this weekend, and in August it was even bleaker. This was vacation and moving in. And then September, even worse. This was when I started working. And then October, also not the best. And then in November is when I started walking. So I was upping it, went from 43, 30, 44, up to 67. And then December, similar. And then January, I absolutely killed it. So this was my high point. And this is when I had like the first progress, I guess. And February kept at it, 90, 93 for March. April was staying at it. May. So you can see I kind of have a typical, around 90 or so. But yeah, I love to get the walking in whenever I can. Next, I want to talk about all the different stretches and exercises I did in physical therapy. First, I want to talk about some more posture stuff while we're on the subject. So when we're getting down, again, I like to usually bend one knee, kind of lunge down, and then I'm going to both knees. Then I typically go for kind of I don't know if it's not figure four, but, kind of a cat-cow kind of deal. And then usually I either, honestly, just sink down and then roll over. So one arm out, go on up. And then when I'm coming up, I would transition, back to the either here, and then slowly, inch by inch, keeping that good spine coming up, and then up here. Or another way, start here, but then we're gonna go for a side, and then go for the back. And then to get up, we would go, and this is my bad leg, so I'd go on the good side, and then pushing up, and then kind of going back to this way. All right, so I'll talk about a few of the physical therapy stretches I did. First one is bird dog. You can start even by just pushing one leg back, and getting it up high is not bad. And then we're going for the opposite. And then got the other one. And with all of these, you could honestly, I would definitely talk to your own physical therapist, go to physical therapy, but also just make sure you're listening to your body and doing what works for you. And to reiterate, also just make sure you're listening to your body and implementing very slowly. Don't just go full ham, but just, one a day, one a week. Really, really take it slow and be patient. Another one is just the light kind of cat-cow. Deep cat, because you're going for that spine, the stretch there, but not much flexion, just a little bit. So you lay down, ear on your arm, and lift that knee up. Clam, so it's kind of getting the hips going. And then another thing, which is crucial, this is my favorite exercise, most helpful, is the side plank. So make sure you get this up, and you can just hold this here. This is going to build those core on your sides. And sometimes I even mix in some clams here. And then, once you get that down, you can get the leg that's down out, and get this one toes on heel kind of. Lift up, and that's going to be a lot stronger. And if you really want to make it hard, you can add an arm to add a little more weight, gravity. And again, you can do that on both sides, 30 to 50 seconds. But again, I would just keep increasing. I started with physical therapy doing 2 sets. So like if I would do 10 on each side, I would do 10 on each side, take a break, and then do another 10 on each side. Now I do a little bit more than that. And I've knocked a lot of these out, so like a lot of them I haven't found to be super duper helpful. But again, it's what works for you. Another thing is just planks. So you could do it with your knees, or you can totally lift up into it. But those are a really good core exercise. Another good one is you're here, you're making sure your lumbar is up so you can reach under, it's up. Lifting here and pushing on the knees as the knees push against the hands. It's basically you're forced to keep a neutral spine, which is great. I love anything on your back, but you're still here. Another thing I like even better, that's similar, so if you get an exercise ball, and I have these at physical therapy too, you're here, you can even use this, and then you can also modify it and do opposite hand, opposite leg. Oh man, hold that. You can hold it for as long as you can. You want to go slow. All these you want to go slow. Focus on posture. Focus on activating the right muscles. And that one's really helpful. Again, I would do about 10 on each side and 2 sets of that. They have a lot of bands like this at therapy too, but if you have a band, pretend this is like more of a band, but I would pull that out while doing the bridge. The bridge is super great. You want to make sure your glutes are fired, and you want to kind of get a sleek, straight bridge here. And you could, hold it for 10, lower, do a few. Another thing you can do is put your foot in this. Another stretch that's hard is to get your leg up, and this will kind of help you straighten it. So I'll show you what I meant earlier. When I started in physical therapy back in October, pretty much October through January, I only maybe gained like 5 degrees. I could always do this, even in the summer, like a year ago, I could do this. But when I tried to lift a leg up, because of the way my nerve was restricted, it was almost like a hose that had a knot in it, and I couldn't straighten out the hose. The water wouldn't flow, the nerves wouldn't work. There was so much pain, there was that knot in it. And now that the inflammation is lowered, it's a lot better. Like, it was that painful, or even doing this was crazy. And on both legs too. I think one leg was a little worse. But now I can literally go like that high. I'm honestly so grateful just for that improvement and that progress. Like, I almost don't have words for how I feel about that. Another good exercise, if you're doing your bridge, you can kind of raise your leg up, and look at that. I mean, it's pretty much totally up there, which is crazy. Just make sure your glutes firing there. Another thing you can do is the figure 4 bridge to expand it. And another stretch we did at therapy was just the figure 4. Pushing this here, pulling this back. And I've heard mixes with this, so I don't know if it works for everybody. And if you can, try and pull it there. That's really tight. There's also the cactus, so you're here. Pull these all the way down if you can, and that'll really stretch the inner thighs. Another thing I did was just rolling over. So if you spread out and you go here and just kind of flop over, we did that like up and down the mat. And if you're going back, you're kind of here, and then you're just falling. You're letting kind of your gravity and your core do a lot of that. I don't really do that one that often, but another thing is kind of getting up here, and this is a core exercise to keep your body straight. Take one step, tiny, opposite, and I would do that kind of up and down. And I probably don't have good posture right now doing it. That's another one we did. We did one where if you have the pulley system, I was standing and pulling the pulley and keeping my core straight, and that was a good core exercise. You can do that at a gym or at therapy. Another good thing is a muscle roller. Can definitely help to untighten yourself up. My original therapist, who I saw once, said to untighten it was to right around where your disc would be, is to just kind of roll it out and get in there and dig it out. A good way to stretch it. It's kind of like a self-massage. We also, we did do squats, so I kind of had like a thing there. You could do it on your bed. I would recommend doing it on your bed. I showed you earlier, but You could also just do them here, but making sure your toes are past your knees and you're kind of keeping that neutral spine, holding it, and really slowly making sure you're having good posture. Another thing just to work out the legs, similar to the squat, is the lunge. Lunge there, holding it for like 10 or so. So I really like that one. Honestly, the best part about therapy is probably just the massaging and the acute, like the really personalized detail and attention and care. And that's gonna change for everybody and depend on everybody's situation and injury and circumstance. But yeah, I really recommend going in and really getting a routine that works really well for you. The main one is the prone. How could I forget this one? So I did this one. This is a classic if you look up anything with sciatica or discs. I did it earlier, but you're kind of doing like a push-up without the legs. And you want to keep your shoulders back, and you should really feel it. And even if it's, even if you're just here and you're stretching, that's good. Or if you're like here, or if you're on your kind of like sphinx with your elbows down, and then you're up. And what my therapist would do was push on my lumbar, on those discs. So when I would go up, she would push, and it would kind of keep me in place. So you want to keep your hips down, push them down, but she would push it, and it would really help too. So again, doing about 10 of those. And I used to do those like 10 every hour. I would honestly just take breaks at work and get on the floor and do them, but I found eventually they would start to irritate me more than they used to. I would just be careful and figure out what works for you. Sometimes I've heard people keep your knees in your upper body, but if you just move your hips to the left or to the right based on your disc injury, that can help, like a modified version. Another thing you can do if you're just trying to use your back muscles is to clasp and lift up. I really feel that. And then if you really want, you could even lift your legs a little bit. So the last part, I think, is I want to talk about yoga and exercises that are not from physical therapy but have also helped me, just some odds and ends. I'm going to link to a playlist I created that has core workouts, Pilates, yoga, and stretches that are tailored towards sciatica, lower back pain, herniated discs. So a lot of yoga is super bad because you're doing, your downward dog, you're doing your bends and all your back bends. And those are awful if they're going this way, but if you're doing a back extension and not a flexion, you're promoting that disc to go back in and you're doing healthy spine activity. And also there's some strength building yoga. Yoga with Celeste, I especially recommend in the playlist. And with these videos and with anything you find, whether it's physical therapy or yoga video or my video, whatever, just take what works for you and test it out and modify it to work for your own body. One thing I do want to mention real quick is this awesome video game by Nintendo called Ring Fit Adventure. If you have a Switch, it's a really, really great video game. You basically strap this to your leg for the leg exercises, and I turn the sprinting way down, so I just have to walk when I'm playing it, and this is kind of a decent stretch if you're doing it with a good spine, but running is really bad. And then this is so strong. It's a way for me to work out some arms without adding much weight. So almost like some free weight exercises are okay, but I would definitely focus on, again, the core, the side planks, maybe even some leg stuff. But what's cool with Ring Fit is you can really avoid all the exercises that have back flexion in them, and you can really customize it to your own exercise kind of routine and pattern. So yeah, that's really great. And again, most of these yoga is from yoga videos that I'll link, and a lot of them are similar to other stuff we've did. So I mentioned in physical therapy the bird dog. There's some modifications of that. So we're right here lifting our leg up, about 5, maybe 10 of those. And then you can bring it in and do kind of a clam or fire hydrant. And then you can keep it there and go up here, which is really crazy, kind of painful. And then you can bring it down and lift it up. And these are really advanced, and these are mostly from Celeste right now. And then there's also the bird dog where you're going here, and then you're reaching back to get more extension, more flexion, in your extension in your back and lifting it up. And then one other thing she does that's kind of crazy is doing a really wide squat, hands up even, and then lifting up here, which is really crazy on many, levels. But that one's really tough. I need to probably do that one a little bit more. And then another good stretch I found from a different yoga video is you're here and you're bringing your opposite leg up, trying to meet it to your chest, and then really digging down. It's a way to actually stretch your back, weirdly enough. Also, butterfly, I like to do sometimes. So yeah, I'd like to finish this video here. I know this has been super duper long, and I really apologize for that, honestly. I'm not the most, concise and efficient person, but hope you learned something from this. And please let me know if you have any questions, anything I could expand upon, anything I didn't mention, or any questions on the resources I linked below, or any others you'd like me to add or check out. And honestly, if you need any advice or help or encouragement or hope or somebody to talk to, please do, not for me, but I really want to educate. So share with anybody that you know that has any kind of disc issue or even lower back pain or just needs this. It's still hard for me. Yeah, mental, social, emotional, the whole side of it is still hard. And even the physical side. I visited my friends that were an hour and a half away after not seeing them for half a year. And it was a hard drive. The drive took about a day to recover and get back to where I was. And my family's going on vacation, and it's an 8-hour drive, and I'm 50-50. I want to go, but I don't know if I can. But I used to love running. I used to love working out. I used to love hiking. I used to love just flopping around and moving my body and not really caring, and flopping on a bed, laying down, sitting, leaning back and releasing my muscles and being lazy. And freedom is a blessing. And the other thing that sucks too, I've been trying to work on, is again to focus on progress and not on pain. But when you get sick and you hate it and you're miserable and you're like, man, I really take being healthy for granted. But then when you're not sick most of the year, you don't really feel any happier. It's the same thing with this. I thought 1 year later, no chronic pain, I can walk, I can stand, I can lift my leg 20 degrees higher. But a lot of these mental aspects have still kind of gotten to me, and they're still sitting with me. And not that this injury was all that brought those about, but you're really going to need a deeper hope and purpose and meaning and joy than just putting all your stock into feeling better or being able to run again, or being able to go to happy hour again, or whatever it is for you. Gratitude, I think, is the most important thing. You should be grateful for all those things, and I think that's a big lesson I've learned. And the other thing I just want to say that I've learned from this is just not being hasty. My life, I'm such a hasty person. I don't think before I do. Driving, I'm just kind of a reckless, lanky, hasty person. I need to slow down and be patient. Patient is my word of 2020 I've been trying to work on. And, with the lockdown and everything going on in the world, it's really helpful, and it's hard with this, it's going to probably be a year and a half or 2 year, more than that maybe, recover. I might be a lifelong of making sure I'm stretching and not doing crazy road trips and being healthy with it. And being patient is everything, and healing is probably, this is the slowest thing. And again, it was a wake-up call in many ways for me this is the first time I've had abs. They're not I don't a six-pack or anything, but it's the first time I've been able to felt my muscles down there and sustain them. And I have to work out every day, and I actually am grateful for that, and I love that. It's all these things they're just side effects, but I honestly think my mindset helped me going in, and I think if if others can get the same kind of mindset. But I learned this from my jiu-jitsu coach from high school, but there's no winning or losing. There's winning and then there's learning. And that's how I look. When I broke my arm, I was like, it was one of my favorite experiences, honestly. Like, I just learned so much. And same thing with this injury, like, learned so much from this, and hopefully set up all these steps for me to have a much better life. I mean, I'm so young, but to be able to improve this many things about my life and to have to slow down and be patient. And I'm still working on that. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Again, you can skip through and I'll have them all the little sections and chapters and parts of this. So if you want to come back to this, you'll be able to easily get to every part of what I'm talking about. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be able to share this and hopefully inspire, motivate, teach, help somebody out there. So yeah, thank you so much, and hope everyone can get better and get back to a happy and healthy and free lifestyle in life, honestly. Bye.